Vinyl Gang, are you ready for another showdown? A top 5 ranking? And the one we're about to tackle
has been a process.
It's been a process.
It's a great idea. In practice, it may be different, but we thought that we would rank the decades for rock. So you obviously start in the 50s and then through, and then like rank them in importance or output or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, just the way we find the decades. This is our ranking. Your ranking may be vastly different.
And we want you to rank them too. And after you do, we want you to tell us what your rankings are. And you can do that on social media, be it Facebook, Instagram. When they go to those social medias, well, what would we like them to do?
Well, we want them to like, just like you said.
Yes.
Like, subscribe, comment, and share.
And we also want you to go, if you haven't, subscribe to that YouTube page or YouTube channel, and then go to Fourth Wall and join there for free. And if you're feeling extra special squirrely, you can throw us a few shekels. I'm beside myself. Shekels. Throw us a few shekels. Help with the advancement of the show. Okay, enough of that. So I threw out the idea of like best decades for rock because, you know, everybody is all up in arms about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, including other genres of music. Now, what people forget, and I don't hear this argument made very often, is that rock and roll is not its own thing. Rock and roll came from both blues, well, not both, came from blues, came from country, bluegrass, rhythm and blues, and really jazz. So when you think of it in that way, rock and roll is like a redheaded stepchild from all the other types of music.
Yes.
So it's really hard to distill down an entire 10 years of something. But if you were just asked off the cuff, what's your favorite decade for rock? I'm sure everybody would have an answer, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we're doing today. So tell us, John, what is the first decade? What is our number 5 decade for rock?
Our number 5 decade for rock, and we're just using an example of an album that came out in that decade, the 2000s.
Jet, Get Born, 2003. These guys rocked. They were kind of like a neo AC/DC, even from Australia. This song or this album is just chock full of hits. Are You Gonna Be My Girl, Roll Over DJ. On the hype sticker, you have Look What You've Done, Cold Hard Bitch. These guys were kind of a throwback to the 70s. I kind of feel like the decade of the 2000s was kind of a throwback to the 70s.
Well, yeah, the early 2000s were like the rebirth of rock after, you know, the music scene being kind of all over the place in the 90s.
Yeah.
The 2000s were back to basics.
Yeah, and no better example than these guys. I mean, these guys kind of showed up, did this album. I think they did 1 or 2 more albums and then they just disappeared.
Yeah.
But at the time, I wasn't really into that 2000s era of bands, but these guys really got my attention. And this isn't just about the band. This is about that time.
Yeah, time.
And what was going on. So I feel like I got this from the record store up in Lafayette when we went years ago, and I still have not opened it. But it was $19. Remember the days when you can get a new album for $19? So if the 2000s are our number 5 decade, what do we go to next?
Our number 4 ranking. All right.
And this is going to probably ruffle some feathers.
We're going to go with the 60s.
And think about it. You had a huge swath of types of band in the 60s, no more important than the Beatles and the Stones. But then you also had bands like Cream and The Who, and the list just
goes on and on.
and on and
Black Sabbath. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you think about it, this was rock and roll's kind of sophomore year,
Right.
sophomore decade.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the reasons we rank it a little lower is because, hey, your sophomore year is not going to be your best year.
You're figuring out what you did wrong with that first year.
Yeah.
And you're gearing up for the really good years to come. No, that's a perfect way to explain it. I think the 60s had so much going on, so many social movements. People were pulled in so many different ways. And, you know, there was nothing but AM radio to further, and record sales to further music in that decade.
Yeah, and the decade really began with, people were buying more singles than albums.
Right, right.
So it wasn't until the mid-decade that really albums became a thing.
Yeah, with the Beatles.
Yeah.
And we've often talked about how important the album was to the Beatles, and many of the bands from this decade had that same importance for their albums, moving from that single mindset into the album. And it's kind of funny because bands have moved on back in modern music, have moved on back to that singles thing.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
They just want a hit song.
Yeah. So number 4 is the 60s. John, what would number 3 be?
Number 3, the 1980s.
Maybe the most schizophrenic decade for music ever. And we use U2 as an example because
they ruled the 80s.
They ruled the 80s, but they really ruled the 90s too. More from a touring standpoint, but from an airplay standpoint, you had MTV. These guys were all over it. You had the whole LA glam metal scene. They were all over it. And then you had your holdouts from the 60s and 70s trying to figure out what to do in the 80s, like bands like Kiss,
ZZ Top,
who completely changed their sound in the 80s to modernize it.
Well, and that's one of the things that gets the 80s in a little bit of trouble, all the production of all the music.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are people who just can't stand 80s music.
Yeah, and you had both electronic drums, you had synthesizers coming
a lot of overproduction
into the fray, a lot of overproduction. And there were bands that almost made it through the 80s without changing their sound. AC/DC is an example.
Oh yeah.
They really were who they were until about 87. Then, blow up your video, and they kind of changed a little bit too. But it's easy to estimate just how important the 80s was, but we're going to talk about some other ones and talk about why we think they're higher. So if 80s is number 3, John, who is our example for number 2?
Number 2.
Look at that. It's
the 90s.
And we aren't talking about Nevermind because that always gets talked about. This, to me, is Nirvana's masterpiece. But the 90s came in and threw a grenade into the music industry from the 80s.
Yeah, they blew up the 80s.
Yeah, they blew up the 80s, blew up all those bands that were on MTV every day that were wearing their sister's workout clothes and makeup and using their sister's hairspray. The 90s felt like a reset.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was a reset.
And it's easy. At the time, all of this music sounded so different from what we were used to hearing up till that point. But when you listen back to it now, it just sounds like rock. I mean, there are bands that are very, very distinctive. But the 90s, everybody immediately thinks of grunge in the 90s. But if you think about it, you had grunge, you had all of those bands from the 80s doing whatever they could in the 90s
to stay relevant.
Right. And then the big one that's easy to forget but very important is the female artist became front and center in the 90s. You had Alanis Morissette, you had Sheryl Crow,
you had the whole Lilith Fair tour.
Had the Lilith Fair tour. And it's really easy to forget that part of it, kind of like the softer side of the 90s.
Yeah.
But the 90s were also a schizophrenic decade. I mean, not just ruled by grunge. There's a whole lot of other music in the 90s. Dig into it and look at it. I mean, the Foo Fighters started in the 90s. Their first album was 95, I think.
Yeah.
So, it's a big decade.
It's a big decade that went through. For the music, we love the music. But for the way music was, it was strange.
Yeah, yeah. Almost as strange as it is now.
Yeah, it was very strange because to start with grunge, well, really, start with hair metal, then grunge, and then go to
like the singer-songwriter stuff.
Singer-songwriter and end with like angry rap metal.
New metal, yeah.
New metal,
yeah.
That's what I was trying to say.
Which definitely was an end of the 90s kind of thing. So if the 90s are our number 2 decade for rock, who? What decade is our number 1?
The 1970s.
Yeah, this is where arena rock was born. It's really where all of these bands from the 60s rode that wave into the 70s and really did some of their best work. We're using Led Zeppelin 4 as an example because I just can't think of a better...
Yeah, the only thing better would have been to put Pink Floyd.
Yeah. And the 70s, so much happened in the 70s. The singer-songwriter movement really started in the 70s. You had Elton John kind of taking hold in the 70s. And then you had the big hard rock bands like Zeppelin and The Who.
And progressive rock took off, yes.
Genesis. The 70s were just filled with everything. It was almost like the decade kind of felt like an experiment, sort of like the 90s did.
Yeah.
And nobody knew where they were going. Nobody knew FM radio would take off as hard as it did. And then all these different genres of rock, album-oriented rock, all of these different things started popping up in the 70s, all of these different ways to describe the music. So, you look back, you had these guys, you had Journey, you had Kiss, you had Alice Cooper.
And then we didn't even get into the end of the decade. Disco took off, punk took off.
Right, punk, disco.
And in between, you've got glam rock taking off. And all these other genres.
Yeah, and we didn't mention the 50s because we kind of feel like the 50s are an outlier. That's where rock kind of got distilled down from so many different types of music. It sets in a place all its own. But the 60s is where it really took off.
Yeah.
And that's why we kind of haven't talked about the 50s. We love Elvis Presley.
We got to have a top 5.
Yeah.
They got left on the bench.
Yeah. So what we want you guys to do is go through, tell us how wrong we are with our picks. And then tell us what your picks are in your order and the reasons for those orders. We want you to go to the social medias. What do we want you to do on the social media?
Like, subscribe, share, and comment.
And we also
comment.
Yeah, don't forget to go to Fourth Wall. Please subscribe to the YouTube page. And most of all, please just enjoy that music because it's sitting there. It's taking up all that space. It's costing all that money. You may as well put that record on the tray and play it. So for Wheels, I'm Jay, and we'll see you all the next time around.